Hello everyone, Mystery here, and wouldn't you know it, the Darktide forums are at it again, responding to my last couple videos about Darktide and its state of balance, especially regarding weapons and Havoc. Now, if you didn't check out these two videos, there's one. This one here is based on my appraisal of range weapons that do pass the litmus test for being good enough to beat Havoc with, and then the second video that is released like earlier today or yesterday, depending on when this video comes out, is all about the melee weapons that are passing this threshold and which ones need the help. And this thread here does not see me in a very favorable light, apparently, or doesn't see my opinions in a very favorable light. I think they're wrong, obviously, and I'm here to explain why they're wrong. I do want to thank everyone who commented on the video. And I also want to thank whoever managed to remember to tag me in this thread, like 65 comments in to the 90 comment thread. Thank you for, pinging me to let me know this discussion was being had, apparently. But this is how I'll be replying to it. And I'll also be replying to the negative comments that I received, or not negative, but the critical comments that I received, the people who disagree with me within my YouTube video comments, which were there were a lot of comments on there. I do read all of them, and I want to thank you for all your comments, positive, negative, cringe, otherwise. I do read them all, and it really helps me get a finger on the pulse of where my community and the community at whole is at, and I think that's really important. And it's also really important for me to speak my piece and get my point across clearly and concisely, and that's what I'm here to do today, and put this one, stake my flag firmly in the ground. I think the misconception comes down to two things. I think that players fundamentally misunderstand what power creep is and what creates power creep in a game. And the second thing is, I think players have a pie-in-the-sky fantasy of what they want Darktide to be that it will never be. And so we're going to crush both of those things today. We're going to crush their fantasies, and we are going to correct the misinformation about what power creep is. And yeah, so if you like this sort of reacting content or whatever, well, subscribe. Great. I think a lot of this could also be cleared up if these people were more avid Mystery viewers personally, if they understood that most of the time, if you look at my historical track record, go check out my fucking back catalog and you'll see that I am almost always calling for nerfs. But in this case, I'm calling for buffs, because as Murderer here puts it in this comment right here, they can see the writing on the wall, because what is happening to this game is that it is becoming more explosive. It is becoming more arcadey. There was a time prior to patch 13, which Murderer also mentions. Murderer has a head on their shoulders here, because I see them mention it down here. Boom, right there. Couldn't put it better myself, Murderer, even though you disagree with me and my points for some reason. Patch 13 dropped. Patch 13, if you don't know, introduced talent trees to the game. Prior to that, Darktide, if you look at the way it was designed, if you look at the design of certain weapons, like the Headhunter autoguns and the Shredder pistol, was designed to be a more tactical, methodical shooter where you move through levels and you take cover and you time your movements, and enemies were also very limited in their capabilities because that tempo was so much slower. But with the introduction of the talent trees, we all got superpowers, and then everything has just gotten crazy and arcadey from there. So I think the game used to be much more tactical and methodical, and now it is much closer to something like Deep Rock Galactic, where you just go in there and you just set up your fucking turrets and you set up your drills and you start blasting. And every engagement just devolves into just big explosions and like crazy, crazy mayhem, which I personally love. But there are a lot of players who probably don't love that. And I'm here to, unfortunately, this is where I shatter your expectations. I'm here to unfortunately tell you, we're not going back to that. That is the reality that we are living in. Darktide is very clearly, after patch 13 was released, the devs for the previous era of the game all said, okay, our work here is done, and left. Their lead game designer, many other devs, I've spoken to a few of their QA testers who worked in this era, the pre-patch 13 era, and they were very interested in like the meticulous and methodical balancing of weapons. And now we are definitely past that era, right? This is a very like RPG focused game now. It's much more about that player power feel experience. We have superpowers, more or less, and that is how the game is going to proceed. And Havoc is the new endgame. It's the new intended endgame. I understand there's a lot of players out there that don't like that. I understand there's a lot of players out there that are not engaging with the system. And I'm not here to argue that their attempt to implement Havoc as an endgame has been successful. I would definitely not argue that it's been successful if you see my videos on it. But it is their intended endgame, and you can tell this because, one, they're putting a fuck ton of effort into this. For anything that Fat Shark puts effort into that releases within multiple different patches and has multiple different hotfixes associated with it, this is something they are definitely hell-bent on making a very big part of the game. And it is also something that the game actively pushes you towards. When you reach level 30, the game says, hey, go speak to Commissar Duquesne. And she says, go do a Maelstrom mission. And then it says, go talk to her again and do your first Havoc mission. And then it goes from there. So the goal is that the new progression for players is that in the first like 50 hours or so that you play through the normal difficulties and you play through the Auric difficulties and you culminate with like Auric Damnation or Auric Maelstroms. And then the game says, hey, if you're still interested in playing more, we've got this thing called Havoc. And for many players, they'll say, no, I was just here for the 50 hours with my friends over the weekend. I'm good. I'm out. See ya. But for those players who have bit the hook, right? They are on the hook and they want to get deep into this Havoc grind. And that is the intended end game for players who are actually devoted and want to put many hours into this. And so here is my argument, is that if we don't keep all of the weapons or most of the weapons in the game at least viable into this Havoc endgame mode, the intended endgame mode for all players, then it's going to ruin players' experiences. It's going to turn off players. And it turns me off personally that I can't use some of the weapons. If you look at my back catalog, yet again, I used to have a ton of different builds with weapons like the double-barreled shotgun and the braced auto gun and the revolver. And I thought those weapons were amazing and fun, and they were very viable in normal difficulties. But I simply cannot use them in Havoc anymore. And why is that? Well, it's because Havoc is designed outside of what those weapons can do. So the simple answer to this equation is to bring those weapons up to snuff. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is players are going to invest all of their resources in the revolver or something like that. As like they're going to be like an executioner stance revolver veteran, right? And they're going to play 40 hours. And then they're going to get to their first game of Havoc and be like, all right, this game fucking kicks ass. Let's see what Havoc is about. And they're going to get their shit kicked in and be like, what the hell happened? And someone in their game will explain to them, oh yeah, you need to be using Shout because Shout is the only viable ultimate in Havoc, and you should also be using Plasma Rifle because it's just better than the revolver in every single way. And they'll say, what do you mean? Why is there a weapon that's just better than another weapon in every single way? And they'll say, I don't know, that's just the way it is. Because Fat Shark didn't listen to Mr. E and buff the revolver for some reason. So I'm not saying make every weapon the fucking plasma gun, by the way. And that's another misattribution or like right here. This is the OP as well. I started out with the literal reason why my argument is fundamentally flawed with an example of things being unfun when everything is overpowered and too easy. Nobody here is saying we need to make the fucking Shredder auto pistol the bolter or the flamer. Right? We don't need new dueling swords in the game. We need new relic blades. We need new, I don't know, throw another example of a relatively viable weapon out there that does a pretty good job but isn't fucking blowing my mind and just completely like curb stomping every enemy within a 12 mile radius. You know, we don't need these crazy powerful weapons. We need weapons that are somewhat decent. And what we got is a handful of weapons that are very solid and very good and are used all the time. And we got a pile of dog shit on the other side. And all I'm saying is maybe we should make use of this 75% of the arsenal that's just completely made irrelevant by having a fundamentally different challenge in Havoc than you do in the rest of the game. And so if you're living in this world where you're like, they're just going to delete Havoc tomorrow, then maybe we don't need to buff them. But they're not, and we need to buff them because they're just going to keep investing more and more resources in Havoc. More and more people who stay around and play this game are going to play Havoc, and we want more weapons. So buff the fucking low-performing weapons. Okay, I need to show you something right here. Okay, so this is the crux of the argument that is being had here. These lines, these horizontal lines, these represent the minimum viability level. If you can cross this line, if your weapon crosses this line, then it can perform in that difficulty. They can perform at that level of play. So for this orange line, this is normal games. If they're like for this set of weapons, these are the bad weapons, the crap ones. You know which ones I'm talking about. Headhunter autogun, just to throw one out. If you're a bad player, if you're a player on the lower end of the skill spectrum, you cannot complete all of the normal game difficulties through all the way up through auric damnation with this set of weapons. It won't help you, right? It's going to start hurting you at a certain point, and you won't maybe have enough skill to overcome that threshold. On the upper level of that skill spectrum, you can do all normal games with even the worst weapons in the game. I would fundamentally agree with that. Now we have to truncate these arrows, these ranges a little bit, because obviously the best player in the world can do anything with the worst weapon in the game, right? You could have like literally gray weapons equipped and complete maelstroms. Tanner Lindbergh proved that like years ago, that a maelstrom can be done with 4 players with no talents and no gear. So we have to kind of keep it within a realm of like reasonable player skill. The average player is going to perform somewhere between here and here. Then we have this level, or this series of weapons that is the OP, or overperforming weapons, right? These weapons, they all will clear normals very easily, right? If you're a player who is of moderate skill and you bring the plasma gun into an auric damnation, you're gonna clear the auric damnation, right? If you got a good build and you can like look at an enemy, you're going to clear the auric damnation. There's nothing challenging enough in auric damnation to overpower the plasma gun is. And so on average, these weapons are very capable of havoc, and the higher skilled players are almost always going to clear havoc using these weapons, and the lower skilled players, well, they're still going to be able to clear all the normal content, but they're going to struggle for havoc. So what is it that I am proposing? Well, all I'm proposing is this. Take this set of bad weapons and move it to here. I don't want it here. I don't want exact power parity. I don't want, again, I'm gonna repeat it 15 times if I need to. I do not want more plasma guns in this fucking game. I do not want more flamers in this fucking game. We have one, and that's enough. And if they have to keep it because they have some agreement with Games Workshop, I guess that's fine. But I would prefer it to be nerfed. Let me go on record and say I would prefer the dueling sword and the plasma gun to be nerfed, but I understand that would upset a lot of people. So my solution is just buff these weapons to here, these bad tier weapons to here, so that if you're a very skilled player and you've invested a lot of hours in learning these weapons, you can at least do some of what players can do with these powerful set of weapons into Havoc. But right now, if you bring the Vigilant Autogun into Havoc, you are going to waste all of your ammo in your clip, and you're going to kill like 3 Crushers, basically. Like that's how much you're going to be able to get done with the weakness of some of these weapons. So that's all I'm saying. What these players in this thread, let me sum up the different lines of argument, is that if we want to balance this game, what we really need to do is this. We need to nerf these green weapons down to here, or maybe just like here, right? You can't nerf them all the way down to being as bad as the Vigilant. But yeah, if we nerf them down to there, and then we're much more in line, then there won't be this huge power disparity between these two things. Okay, so that's great and all. But how'd that work out for Helldivers 2? Were people really happy about that? Were people like, yes, the game is so much more balanced now. Thank you, Arrowhead. This game is, or it's Arrowhead, right? Or whoever developed it. This game is so balanced and awesome now. I'm going to tell all my friends to play it. As I remember, that is not exactly what happened with that situation. I think, if I remember correctly, what is it? Did people quit the game in droves and review bomb the fucking game because it was bullshit that players invested a ton of time and resources and got really attached to playing with the weapons they actually liked and were fun to play with, and then the devs took them away? And there was essentially the same thing as saying, no, you can't play with your favorite toys in the sandbox anymore. I think that was what happened, if I remember correctly. So yeah, if you take away the weapons and people that have gotten attached to, yeah, there's a certain subset of people who are, forum warriors who are saying, God damn it, nerf the dueling sword and stuff. But, I polled my community, and they want buffs for other weapons way more than they want nerfs for the dueling sword. Because yes, while dueling sword and plasma gun are outliers and they are problems, the real problem is that there's really no other option that stands even anywhere close to them. So if you nerf these weapons down, players are just going to be really, really pissed about losing a good portion of the power that they've had and have gotten used to. So why don't we stay away from pissing off the 5,000 concurrent players that we are struggling to keep like 2 weeks after a major update, and leave these weapons alone for now, okay? The other idea that they had is we could do this, and we could take Havoc and we can make it like this. We could make it so it's not so fucking crazy, and then we would have these low-performing weapons be good enough to compete with the high-performing ones, and the high-performing ones can still do whatever they want. And I think their ideal world is that this would happen, right? And then this would happen. And this is their ideal world. Well, let me bring you back to reality again. This is not happening, right? There's no way they are nerfing their end game mode to be easier, and they're nerfing the weapons that a lot of players really enjoy being OP with, because this game is all about power fantasy now, let me remind you. And I think, well, actually, really what some players want is this. I think there's a lot of players that want that, but that's definitely not happening. So let's keep it realistic here. The problem with doing this, and lowering the challenge of Havoc is that everybody like me or other players who are very invested in the game and play a ton and have gotten used to the difficulty of Havoc and like the challenge, I would be pissed if tomorrow they said Havoc only goes to 30 now. Like, we realized that the Havoc 30 through 40 was too crazy. It was like an unfair challenge, and it wasn't allowing players with different builds to pursue their dreams of happiness. I'd be like, what the fuck? Here I was ready to go from 40 to 50. Like, I'm so ready for that next level of challenge, and you're gonna take away. This would be like Helldivers saying, super hell or Helldive difficulty 8 was too much, and many players in the community aren't playing it, so we're taking it away. 8 is the maximum difficulty now. How pissed would players be if they did that? Not to mention the fact that doing this ultimately just says, like, okay, so remember, Season 1 was like here, right? And then Season 2, this new Havoc 2.0 is like this. And presumably Havoc 3.0 will be up here even more. It'll get crazier and have more modifiers. Doing this is ultimately just saying, okay, so all that stuff we worked on for the last, 3 months, yeah, just flush that. We're just gonna make it easier again. That's a bad idea, guys. Okay, and then the last thing I want to address is that players are saying that if we go with my idea, which is taking these weapons and making them like here, right, it's gonna make these normal games too easy. Because as you can see here, now it's easier for players that are playing with these suboptimal weapons to clear normal games. And I have two things to say about that. One, the players who are playing normal games, they are mostly, I've inspected a lot of them, many players are not using these garbage bin weapons because they're not fucking stupid, right? You can play with one of those bad weapons, like a vigilant autogun, and then you can play with any other weapon for one game and you can feel the difference. You can feel the tangible difference. Now, you could be tricked into thinking something that, like, the revolver would be viable in Havoc, right? You could play with that because that's really powerful in normal games. But there's a good portion of the weapons in this bad tier list that are just garbage, and anyone can tell the second they try a single other weapon. The other thing is that these players, again, are not stupid, and they exist in the world that Mr. E exists in, and other content creators, and tons and tons of information online that will tell you which weapons are actually good. They also play, every time they press quick play, they queue up with 3 other players who are all using their own builds, and they can see with their eyes when there's one guy on their team who's using the plasma gun and he's just destroying everything, right? And what's that player gonna do? Are they gonna continue being like, well, I'm sure my gun is just as good? No, they're going to be like, oh, what are you using? Oh, Recon Las Gun? I'm going to use that from now on. And so over time, as you get more experience in the game, you start switching from using these crap weapons to using these. So to the point where when you inspect players who are at like Havoc level, whatever, or if they have any Havoc level at all, or if they have like over 100 levels, like true levels played on their account, they are almost invariably using one or more meta weapons in their setups, and their builds look like something they copied off of GameSlanter, right? They've figured out the builds. The game is solved for that sort of stuff. So if you buff these weapons up, these bad tier weapons get buffed up to like here, right? Who is that really helping? It's only helping the people who are very new to the game, and this is not power creep. Moving these low tier weapons up to have some parity with their more superior counterparts is not what power creep is. Power creep is always defined by the upper tier of options, right? If these OP weapons moved up, then we would be power creeping. It's defined by the most egregious outliers, the ones on the top end of the power spectrum. So you wouldn't say that like Hearthstone coming back in and adjusting old cards to be on level with their newer, more powerful cards is power creep. The newer cards that got minted that were really powerful are the power creep. So no one is saying we want to adjust these high tier weapons and push them up further. No, literally no one is saying that. So this would be power creep. Moving these to make them more equitable with the super powerful alternatives is not power creep. It is just simply giving more equity to the weapon selection that we have. And are they going to be mad that their fucking like shredder pistol just got like 50% better? I don't think so. Are you going to be like, oh my god, dude, I was having such a great time playing Auric Damnation, and now all these noobs are in here with their shotguns that do 30% more damage than they did before, and it's just not fun anymore. Dude, shut the fuck up. Plasma gun is already in normal games. Recon Lasgun's already in normal. Shouts in normal games. Like, all this stuff is already in there. You're going to complain about this. Not to mention the fact, most people who are playing normal games couldn't give less of a fuck about this conversation. They don't even think about balance, right? The people who play only normal games and don't engage with Havoc in any way, that are like, Havoc is just a bullshit level of difficulty and modifiers. It's challenge for challenge's sake. It's just not fun to me. I want to play quick play and smoke weed. That's the sort of player that is playing in normal games. They are not poring over their stats and checking min-max for DPS. They're not making certain that like, oh, is 5% rending or 15% rending actually more viable? Like when I pour over my fucking builds, right? They're just playing the game and hitting the fucking bong and having a good time, right? They don't give a fuck whether or not the weapons that are shit are getting a 50% buff. This is not going to ruin your experience. Please stop crying and trying to defend normal games like there's some holy bastion. The game is fucked in terms of difficulty and balance. All right, guys? Everyone can agree on that. All right, let's have some common ground. You and me and you guys, everyone who's scrolling by here on the screen, let's have some common ground. Let me reach out an olive branch. The game's balance state is fucked. It's crazy. We have super powered, twice the power of a Space Marine from Space Marine 2 walking around, literally summoning the holy wrath of gods. The Ogryn is a walking war crime at this point. Like, it's absolutely absurd. I fire 2 grenades into a bridge and kill 23 shotgunners in the space of 0.8 seconds in today alone. And like, yeah, it's fucked. It's crazy. There's just clown cars of enemies everywhere. But this is the reality of the game, right? This is enjoyable for me. It's enjoyable for some players, and they're not turning around. Okay, this boat is sailing out to sea, and this is the way the game is going to be designed from now on. And so all I'm saying is that the single action that Fat Shark can take at this point to make the game more appealing and to make this ostensibly the desired end game for all players more viable and more enjoyable in the long run is to take the worst weapons of the game and at least make them pass that threshold. At least give them enough juice so that they can compete in Havoc, and that will be the least suffering for everyone involved. You don't have to fuck with the difficulty of Havoc. You don't have to nerf people's favorite weapons. You don't have to do anything fancy at all. Just give these weapons some sort of niche where they can have some viability. Give Shredder auto pistols the ability to actually like shred armor. Like have them have inbuilt brittleness or something. I don't fucking know. You guys are the devs. I'm just a commentator. Okay, guys. That's all I have for this rant. Sorry, I guess, or you're welcome, whatever. I don't know if you guys like this shit. Anyway, subscribe to Mystery for more content. I love you. Goodbye.